Okay.
Ewan and Gallery.
I'll do Valerie, you. Here we go. All right. Hey everyone, it's Frank Klesitz. Welcome to another live show of Keeping It Real. You're going to learn today 4 ways to get listings. At the time of this recording, you can check out YouTube and look at the date, but we're entering the spring selling season of 2021. May not feel like spring given the most of the country is under a snowstorm right now, but this is where the leads come in of people thinking of selling their home in March and April, as you guys all know. So I'm here with my co-host, Greg Harrelson, and a big thanks to Real Geeks at putting on Keeping It Real. And our job is to get the detail that you need from people that are really crushing it and doing it well in real estate, so you can model what they're doing for yourself and your business to succeed. So a couple of housekeeping tips first is all the shows. We've been doing this show for, I think maybe 6 years, about 6 or 7 years. Go check out keepingitreal.com, and you can go watch all the previous episodes. They're all completely educational, and you'll meet some of the top players in real estate from around the country that are doing a lot of business. And with really good interviews, because we're your hosts and they're great. You can also opt in and subscribe to the show. You'll only get notifications of the show on the Keeping It Real page. All right. You won't get any emails about anything else. And we're also on iTunes. You can subscribe to the Real Geeks Facebook channel. And those are all the ways you can stay in touch. So co-host here is Greg Harrelson. Greg, say hi.
Hey, everybody. Looking forward to another great show. Hopefully you all got some value out of the show that we had a few weeks ago with Brandon. I know that was hot. And we're going to take a totally different direction today and now start really focusing in on the listing side. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, the last show, the previous one with Brendan, was all about you have for the most part, a buyer lead come in from your website, from an internet lead, and maybe even like a light seller lead, like somebody wants to find out what their home is worth. And Brendan gave us this incredible lead follow-up action plan. And if you watch the previous video, the previous episode, for a solid lead follow-up system with diagrams, like operational diagrams, what to do, that's something you got to check out. So today, Steve, welcome. Say hi, my friend.
Good morning. Sorry for being a little behind. Yes.
No, you're all set, man.
Yeah. Obviously he's on the West Coast. But well, that's right. You guys are both on the West Coast. I'm thinking, good morning. It's 2:00 where I am.
Yeah. It's still good morning here. It's 11 a.m. So
that's right.
So Steve, really quick, let's get right into it. You are probably one of the more, I don't know the rankings of 1, 2, or 3, but you're in the top couple listing agent, not necessarily someone that runs a whole bunch of transactions with their team, but just to give the audience some perspective, how many homes did you sell last year? And how many of those were listings that you took?
We closed 135 units last year, totaling right under 55 million. And 90 of those were listing signs. And pretty much I'm the only listing agent. I think we had one closing that was a listing from one of our team agents.
Got it. And last year, just give us the makeup of your support team that helped you do that.
Yeah. So last year, our core team that was not newly hired towards the end was one full-time ops person who is listing manager / pre-listing everything catch-all. And then we had two outside sales people that were virtual assistants, and then 2 full-time buyer's agents, and then I'd call her half of an admin. She is like a showing partner / does the mail and, in-person stuff that's low task stuff for our team.
So you're pretty thin.
Very thin.
Yeah. Very thin. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the title of today's interview is 4 ways to get more listings, essentially. And let's just start off with the 4 things that we're going to share in this video, in this interview, is the 4 ways that you get most of your listings, Steve, if I'm correct. Let me go through them. Is you have a meticulously managed database. So your database is pretty incredible. I want to go deeper on how you organize your database and what the definition of a database is, and really how you work all your past client and sphere relationships without being a pest. So they use you to list a home or refer you. That's the first thing I'll talk about today, Greg. Second is cold calling. Oof. Some straight up cold calling, whether it's yourself or you've hired some people to call homeowners to ask them if they're interested in getting an offer on their home. I'd like to learn more about that and how that works. If it still works, given all the technology out there, is it even worthwhile? Apparently, since you're doing it, I'm sure it is. I'd like to know some of the details of that. Third is you run ads on Facebook and Google Ads, pay-per-click, Google Ads, for getting an offer on your home. Not so much find out what your home is worth, But from what I understand, you run ads for someone to get like an instant offer on their home. Is that correct?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So a little bit difference in the messaging there from what you more traditionally see with a seller lead type of ad. And then finally, you took a deep dive in the Sacramento market on buying radio. Is that correct?
Yes. Amid the pandemic.
Right in the middle of the pandemic, you made a radio buy. That's right. Yeah.
Go big.
So I think we should start the interview off today. So those are the 4 things we're going to cover. So let's go deep on those 4 things today. Let's talk about where most of your business comes from. So the majority of your money is made on which of those 4 pillars?
Definitely referral sphere. I lump referrals together in one group: agent to agent, sphere, like sphere referrals, and then past client referrals, and then repeat customers, people we've serviced 7 years ago who are repeating again. And then I do lump the referral syndicates, I call them, like Homelight, Dave Ramsey, Open Door, all into one group. And so that's the number 1 as a percentage, right? And then the rest are split pretty equally, between prospecting and marketing based. Gary Keller says you want to be prospecting based, marketing enhanced. And so as you scale your own time, you can afford, all marketing is just buying your time back as you run out of it, honestly.
Got it. So you put the referrals from third-party sources inside the database. Is that correct? Do you think of it in terms of a database thing?
It's considered a referral to me. It's like a referral from an agent, similar cost of sale. So
fair enough.
It's not a big component of our business, nor am I planning to make it that. I look at that as something that can get taken away like that. And I'm not going to build that as a real pillar of my lead gen,
So let's start there then. Let's before we get into your past clients and sphere. And Greg, feel free to ask any questions here because you know a lot about working with third-party providers and their leads to come in.
I sure do.
Who do you buy direct pay on type of referral leads from again? Who are those sources for listings?
I don't buy. Well, Dave started charging for his service, but I don't buy any referral leads. Homelight, it's a 25% referral, something like that. It's only, if it's to me, if I can add scale by, partnering with those, and we have a lot of closed transactions, so we're going to get quite a few referrals, right? And then Dave's system, I think, costs like $350 a month. But Dave's system is more of a strategic partnership because I'm a Dave Ramsey follower and have been for 10 years. And I just like his clients. It's a good client to have. So the only, what I would say, aggregator we pay is Zillow at a very small spend. And we've been slowly cutting that back. And it's a strategic zip code that we really wanted. And so, of the aggregators, that's the only one we actually pay on a monthly basis besides Dave.
How much business do you get from Dave and Homelight?
Dave is both of them are very small. I would say I've closed more Dave Ramsey referrals just because I think I speak the language and those people resonate with that. So I have high conversion. So I think last year we did somewhere around 9 transaction sides, because some might be a seller buyer, right? So 4 or 5 listings and the rest were buyer sides. In Homelight, I think we closed 1 deal last year. Just like any other internet lead, and I think that's the thing to remember is even if it's Dave or Homelight, they're doing the same advertising that we are, Facebook, PPC, and they're just getting them to opt in with several more questions. So they're further down the funnel versus like, hey, I want your name and phone number. They go, I want your name, phone number. Are you selling or buying? How much would you like? What is your time frame? Every question you add adds another $25 to the cost of that lead.
What's the qualification for somebody in the audience that maybe want to go check out partner with Dave Ramsey or Homelight? You just know what they look for.
Dave is looking for someone who's been an agent for 4 years, and you have to have at least 25 sales per year, I believe, for those 4 years. It's pretty heavily screened. And then Homelight, I think anyone can sign up for Homelight, but their algorithm uses sales statistics to refer you based on where that buyer or seller is thinking of moving. So you need to have sales in that zip code or area. Both take heavy management to get set up and keep up to date. And it's almost like its own little CRM. So if you're going to opt in for one, just know how it works,
Greg, what are your thoughts on those sources?
Yeah. So first of all, I think these sources are fantastic, and there's multiple. I mean, I can give a list of. I just wrote down a list. He said Dave Ramsey, HomeLight. There's Agent Pronto, Fast Expert, Referral Free.
Whoa, slow
Referral
down.
Machine.
Hold on. Let's hear them all. Go, Greg.
Okay. All right.
Tell us where someone can go to basically buy those types of referral listing leads.
Okay. First of all, let me say something about this. You use the term buy. Okay. So I want to make sure that we clarify this for the consumer. There's certain things like a Dave Ramsey where you can go ahead and you can pay a fee upfront or reoccurring, and then there might be some back-end referral fee in addition to that. So that would be kind of, to me, more buying. Or go to Zillow and you can buy leads, right? Now with HomeLight, you're not buying anything, you're pay for performance. So they're going to send you leads and you pay if that lead performs and you perform in a form of referral fee. So I just want to make sure there's no buy-in to this. There's just a back-end referral fee if you perform. But HomeLight, Agent Pronto, Fast Expert, Referral Machine, Glenn Beck, you can do that. Was it? Gosh, I keep thinking Nest. It's not Nest. I can't remember exactly what the other one is.
Upnest.
Upnest.
Yeah.
All of these are, that's all I have right there, Frank. All of these are pay on performance. Okay. Now they're all, I love what Steve says. It's important to know that they do have their algorithms and they're going to direct traffic based on, what they know about you. But the lead flow, they've got plenty of lead flow. I know agents, I've got agents in my own office that probably do 20 listing closings off of HomeLight. I got a few agents that probably do at least 20 off of HomeLight alone. Okay. And that's not including any buyer business they get from HomeLight. That's just seller business. But the key is the most important thing that's influencing their algorithm is going to be how quickly you respond, how quickly you update, and things like that. So they're monitoring your activities in addition to where your sales are, and how you kind of relate to their portal is going to influence how much business that they're going to send your way. I mean, and I'm sure there's a lot of hidden, factors that I would not even know. But if you're going to play in this game, you have to treat it like it's a, you got to understand they police it better than anybody in the industry.
Yeah, you're kind of like taking to the edge of their employee, I would assume.
Yes, and so if you're willing to do the and follow up the proper way, you will be rewarded. You just got to know how to play the game, and the game is not hard. The game should be a minimum standard for real estate agents. Mm-hmm. The challenge is we're so poor as an industry in making notes and following up and doing all these things, that these companies will lose their tails financially if they don't actually put high policing on us.
So that's a good tip. Those are some solid resources everyone can go toward to maybe a referral fee or a flat fee plus referral fee model of someone who can just send you leads, right, Steve?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that it's a real estate team without being on a team, right? So they're taking all the upfront cost of the marketing and they have years of that marketing track record, HomeLight in particular, and they're, but I think you're also susceptible. So don't let this be your leg, right? Because you're susceptible to HomeLight taking that business at some point. Just like Zillow in their Flex offering, Zillow saw, Dave Ramsey and HomeLight getting closer to the consumer. Zillow's model is going to be moving towards, the pay by referral, heavily tracked, heavy accountability on their agents to update notes and update calls, but they're going to be able to use that data. How many calls does it take to get to an appointment, right? They're chasing the same things that real estate teams are chasing.
So let's move into database. So I almost call it like section 5, like the fifth way is like partnering with other lead providers and what we just discussed. But you talked about long-term profitability, which is really coming down to all the contacts you have that you built relationships over the years that convert or, do to a sale or you stay in touch with the past clients in Sphere. Why don't you just share with the audience, give us a little lesson, if you will, of how you've organized your database and how you stay in touch with it. Teach the audience what you've done so they can model it too.
Yeah. And so I would start with, and I believe that your database is your business, and I've been on an independent agent, I've been on a big team, and I had to launch my own team, right? So I've had a lot of experience at the highest of levels with tens of thousands of leads and not knowing what was in that database or not having it segmented. It was just a repository of contact info. And so having learned those mistakes, I created like a database philosophy per se, and you should break your people up into two groups, right? And if you know the MREA, you have your not Mets and your Mets, right? And I think you should take it deeper.
Let me just jump in. That's the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Many people probably consider that one of the Bible, if you will, of how to become a real estate professional and do well. Go to Amazon and check out the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Gary Keller wrote it, and it's wonderful. And the concepts that Steve's going to talk about are in that book, right, Steve?
Yes, definitely. It's a great business book, whether you're an agent or any kind of business. But you break your database into two groups, which is your people that you have not met yet and the people that you have met. And the people you have met, you would call those your Sphere database, right? And I think the real money-making activity is taking that database and then breaking it down into segments and groups, because you may have met someone, but they're not going to refer you business because you're not close to them or you don't have that relationship yet, right? So the whole goal with that Sphere database is break it down, really understand what's in it. So our Sphere database is probably like 1,900 strong, 1,000 past clients, which I would have a whole section of past clients. It's different than your whole Sphere database, right? Because you may know someone, but they're not a past client. So Sphere, engage everyone that you know, and then have a segment for your past clients so you can clearly delineate who you've done business with and who you haven't, right? And then in your past clients, I would recommend breaking those up into 4 groups. Group C is someone who you've done business with, and then for whatever reason, you never really talk to them after that point of sale, right? Not that you didn't try, but they're not the type of person that really cares to talk to their real estate agent after the sale. So that's a group C. A group B is someone that had a great experience and you think would refer you and would pick up the phone if you called them or would talk to you at the grocery store when you see them. Group A is someone who has referred or has referred once, but not multiple times, had a great experience. And that group, every group that you segment should get smaller and smaller, right? And then we have a group called our raving fans, which are people who have referred at least one deal or will refer one deal per year. And we keep that updated and constantly review that. And we treat those people differently. And I think the real key is whether it's your Sphere or Met database or non-Mets, if you have a very good philosophy of how to break those contacts up into groups, you have special messaging for each group. You're not going to send a text to your group C and say, "Hey, it's Steve. I'm thinking of you," right? And was curious if you want to get together for 5 minutes, right? Or let's say a big problem we have in California, we move so many of our sellers out of state that when we text them, we don't want to say, "Hey, do you want our vendor list for Sacramento?" Right? Because 60% of our sellers leave the state and that vendor list is not relevant to them at all, right? So, think of your database as a way for you to get messaging to them. And also it allows you to have scale and manage more contacts at a higher level.
Steve, how long did it take you to do that? Because that sounds exhausting.
It took 6 months to really get it all dialed in, and it's still not.
You went name by name by name.
Yeah, we printed
and classified them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What motivated you to do that?
Well, I was on a big team within Keller Williams, top 100 team. And like I said, we're talking a $4 million GCI team, right? So I witnessed all the challenges that we had with that team, going from 100 units to 500 units and 3 agents to 25 agents, and watched we were spending close to $60K a month on advertising, filling this database, right? But we had no idea what was in it. And our referral rate was like 10%. And so I watched for 5 years as we were trying to build this team, all of these challenges, and I was blessed with an opportunity to start from scratch. So I figured I had one chance to do this right. And so it was of high value to me to get it right. And Gary Keller says, if you have 1,260 people in a database and you market to them effectively with a 33 touch that is items of value and good content, you should be able to run $1 million business. And 100% accurate, you can.
Wow. Wow. Greg, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
You have a lot of agents that work for you.
Mm-hmm.
How many of your agents have done what Steve has done?
Well, in my case, the majority, because I do it at the top level. So basically, I've created all of the databases, or the CRMs to house the databases, the segmentation, and all the drips and everything we've created, basically as a company, and then they're putting their databases in those particular systems. So now, would all the agents go and do everything he said? Very seldom are you going to see an agent do all that. So, I really
like name by name,
yeah,
A, B, C
yes,
classifications.
The trick is, at least when I get new agents, what I'm doing is I'm training them from their first name they ever put in their database, put it in there the right way. Yeah. That's what's critical, is like you put it in there the right way on the first time. And so you don't have to go back. But we've had to go back and do the same thing to ours, or similar but different. We do some things not like what he's doing, but similar. But most of my agents are going to do that. They're just going to do it from day one.
Steve, last question of database. What is the 33 touch? What do you send these people now that you probably have the whole list, everyone? What do they get? And then you probably have your more niche segments, like your A's and your B's.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share with the audience what your touch plan is for your database?
Yeah.
You're not coming across as a pest, right?
Well, and I'll add one point to what Greg said. It was a great point. Like, even if you don't have the patience or the wherewithal to go back and do all that, right? At least start now. It's super easy to do it from this point forward, one at a time, for your 20, 40, 60 transactions a year, right? So do it from this point forward, because 5 years from now, I promise you're going to see multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of return on that short 2-minute effort to just be organized right now. But to get to the point of our sphere, and this is something that we constantly work on, but in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, it says there's a 33 touches over 12 months. We've doubled that. So we have somewhere around 66 touches in our sphere plan. And so that looks like 4 events every year. And so COVID really hurt that, but we do portraits in the park. Last year we got to do that because we could stay far apart. A movie event where we rent the theater out, and that's a very effective event. People love it. And then we do, of course, a pie event for Thanksgiving. And then this year, we're still trying to figure out what that 4th event is. We're going to do maybe an ice cream social, something. And the reason for the events is not for the people that come. In my first pie event, there was only like 46 people. I ordered 100 pies. I wasted a lot of money. But the key is you can call your database 4 times around that event. And you can also build your email campaigns and any text campaigns around that. So it gives you something to call rather than just calling and saying, hey, do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell, right? So 4 events.
Can I interrupt real quick? Because I tell you, we need to put a little bit more emphasis on what he just said. Okay, because most people, so Steve, what you just shared and what I want the audience to hear is you're getting more mileage out of this pie thing that you're doing, this pie event. You're getting more mileage than the average agent who's actually doing a pie event. See, there's people that are going to do pie events and they're going to go out there and say, okay, they're going to email everybody and say, hey, let me know if you want a pie, or text everybody and let me know if you want a pie. And they're going to have people come to them, or they're going to go to them, right? But what I hear you saying is you're being a lot more strategic, and you're saying, okay, before I'm visualizing that you're saying probably a month before the pie event, send this out. And then 2 weeks before the pie event, text this out, and then make sure we call everybody, a week before the pie event. And then after the pie event, do this. Mm-hmm. I would imagine you have some sort of formula there, and that right there, you're getting so many touches around that one event. And it's like you said, it's everything outside of the pie. It's the outskirts of the pie. It's the outer layers of that whole pie event that's really important to your database. I mean, I think that's important because I think
it's the excuse to call,
they don't
so
do
you're
enough.
not a pest.
Yeah.
As a team leader, it's how do you get your agents to call clients, right? Like, how do you get them to call? And I'm not afraid to call, but other people are. So there's nothing better than calling clients and saying, hey, we rented out a whole movie theater. Would you like to come? It's free, right? And but yes, we have a very strategic plan. We try to be strategic. Oftentimes we're scrambling at the last minute to execute this all, yeah. But usually we hit them with the mailer. So we mail one piece of mail to all of our sphere, right? Our whole sphere, 1,800 people, one time per month. And 4 of those mailers are centered around invitations to the event. So we're not just sending them these pre-canned cards, right? So they get hit with the mailer. It's like a week after the mailer hits, we'll call, and then they get we usually send 2 email invitations before the event, and we have them register so we know who's registered and not, so we're not double hitting them and whatnot. And then a week before the event, I'll drop a voicemail to our whole sphere database. And then usually a few days before the event, right at the last minute, I drop all of those same invitations, email, text, and a voicemail drop to our whole database of not mets. And so I do that at the last minute, knowing that they don't have enough time to register, but I want them to see what we do for our database, right? And so it's a great way to touch the other 10,000 people I haven't met with a call to action of value versus like, hey, are you considering buying or selling your home?
I love some good takeaways so far. So signing up for these referral sources like Greg shared and what you used, whether it's paid monthly or referrals. Mm-hmm. The fact that you start from day one actually having a list of all of your past clients and actually having a list of the people you know somewhere, further segmented down by like A, Bs, and Cs. You want to go really deep, which is what you've done, Steve. And I think one of the big challenges everyone has is how do I work with people I know for business without being a pest, and it's the strategy of holding 4 events a year of some type. Mm-hmm. And the event is one of the excuses or the reasons to reach out that leads maybe to a business conversation. Am I hearing you right, Steve?
Yep. Super easy. And I want these guys to get value today. So 4 events, that's 4 touches. And then, around those events are phone calls, emails, texts, and then also mail, right? We send 12 mailers to our database of Sphere people every year. So there's 4, 12, and then, so that's, what is that? 26. I'm not going to add it all up, but I'll just tell you what we did.
18.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. 18. Because I was counting the phone calls per event. So mail, 12 touches, 4 events. And then we try to call quarterly around the events. That's another 4 touches. Oftentimes we're calling them more than quarterly, but let's just leave it at that. And then we get 2 video emails per month to our database. That goes to everyone in our whole pipe, everyone, thousands of people, but our sphere gets that too. And then we have 13 holidays where we're texting them on that are recurring every year, and they don't change the day of the year, like 4th of July, right? Or Christmas. Every past client in our database gets that text message. Not all of our spheres get that text, not yet anyways. I'm still trying to work on that. But so they'll get 12 text messages on those holidays. And then let me just think, I'm trying to make sure I hit all of those. And then we do, our goal this year was to do one webinar per month as well. Like an educational webinar. So we're also sending our database an email invite to that webinar every time that we do it. And then we also, our goal is touch every past client on social media at least twice per year. So we're trying to add them on social too and retarget them there. So I don't know how many touches it is, probably more like 80 or 100, you know?
Yeah.
We have it all in a spreadsheet.
And how much business comes from your database a year? How much money? That system that you shared with us, that could seem tedious to set up and do. How much money last year did that system make you from working your database like that? Commissions.
At least 400,000 GCI, at least. Yeah, I don't have my spreadsheet up in front of me, but well, let me just tell you this. Our closings this year so far, we're at, I think 16 closings, over half are from our Sphere database and referrals. And so 160,000 GCIs from referrals already this year.
So set up lead referral relationships, work a database. You know, with time, we can go super deep on what you just shared there, Steve. I think there's a principle there of you've got it together, you segment it, you have a constant communication plan that adds value. Sorry, Greg, what was your question?
You know, I was going to say, for somebody that's starting out, okay, and they say, man, this is just brilliant, I want to start doing this. At what point, if you're starting today, today's the first day and you implemented a good many of these strategies, at what point do you think that one would start seeing some sort of results? Because I don't want people to think they can start this tomorrow and like, oh, you know what, I'm going to get 5 come list me calls in the next 2 weeks. So could you just kind of share with them, like, what would the expectations be? You do this, you're investing in your future. How long do you think it becomes measured, like you measure something?
Yeah, this is a long term. This is your foundation of your company, right? Like, this is not a lead generation campaign, right? This is how you treat your clients long term, so they stay your clients, right? So I want to give that disclaimer. If you don't have past clients yet, you're not going to see those returns from your sphere at all, I don't think. I think this is a 24-month at least game plan to start building this is a philosophy of how we do business. And so keep in mind, and as we get later into the other legs of how we do business, that's why I keep filling my database, right? Like, that's why I'm spending money on radio and internet and all of that stuff. I want to keep filling it so I can keep adding past clients, because they're so fruitful. Once I do have them as a past client, I know I'm going to touch them and squeeze as much opportunity out of them as I can.
Referral sources. How important that is? How important that is? Because but think of what the long term. So most people are calculating ROI on, I spent X in January, I got X amount of leads in January, and I converted X amount of those leads by February, and that's their ROI. But see, he's saying I'm spending X amount of money on leads. Sure, there's going to be some conversion in the short term, but he's going to add the short-term conversion with the long-term conversion of what he's going to do with some of those people that he captures that are not interested in doing right now, that no one makes any money off of. He's going to make money on the back end and on the front end. So that's the why it can work.
That's the shift where you go from salesperson to business owner.
Yes.
Isn't it?
I want to interject. Zillow, Open Door, and this is why we do what we do, right? And this is why I have this philosophy, and Elevate was built this way. Zillow, Open Door, and all these other disruptors we'll take that cost, that opportunity cost to acquire the customer from the very beginning to zero, and probably even negative, so that they can have that customer. If you look at the businesses at the highest level, they have something called, Frank, you probably know this, like it's a customer value, right? Like you
lifetime value.
Lifetime value.
They'll take
of
a
your customer.
loss. They'll take a loss just to get the customer, because they can afford to outspend the competition and make it up long-term on the back. And that's why all the capital's there to fuel it.
Hence why Open Doors buying homes at a loss, right? Like it's an opportunity cost for them, because they're playing the infinite game, not the today game. And anyone who's calculating ROI on the month that they get the lead you're totally not getting the picture. You have to have a 12-month horizon and then look at it and be okay. Just like an investment, you have to be okay losing that money. And if you're not willing to wait out whatever campaign you're going to run 12 months, you shouldn't do it, honestly.
Well, that leads to the next pillar. So we talked so far about, I'd say, referral sources from third parties and meticulously communicated with touch plan, database. I really like setting around events as one of the reasons to reach out to your database where you don't feel like a pest. That's one of the biggest objections of like, what do I say and what do I do to communicate? Let's now move on to the other pillar. Cold calling, straight up cold calling. Now, I just know out of this that obviously before you do cold calling, you're going to be getting people that aren't even thinking about selling their home that they happen to call out of the blue. All right. Yeah. Which requires a great nurture plan. So before we even go into this pillar, you want to make sure you have your database nurture system set up probably before you invest in cold calling. Am I correct, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us your thoughts behind cold calling and how you do it, the dials, the contacts, who you call. Give us the rundown of how you make it work.
Got it. And I will put the disclaimer, like just as important as your database philosophy is for your sphere, for your non-Mets, it's just as important. You have to be very clear about what constitutes a hot lead, what constitutes a nurture lead, right? What is the time horizon you're going to place on your different categories of leads so that you know how to follow up with them? And again, it goes back to the messaging. How are you going to provide messaging to someone who says they want to sell in 2 years, not today, right? So the KPIs on outbound cold calling I will add that they're continuously going down, and it's becoming less effective as it was 5-7 years ago, but it's still an effective way to find seller nurtures. So, for every 100 dials, you're probably going to speak to 7 people. And so this is not the best job for someone whose dollar per hour, like me at this point, is extremely high because you're not going to get a good return. So, if you're brand new, hammer the phones, right? But as you start to grow your business, you should offload this to a virtual assistant or something. But 100 dials should get you 7 to 10 contacts. And you're going to need to make contact with probably 40 people before you get at least one verified nurture. If I personally was calling every 20 contacts, I could probably get a nurture. If you're sending this overseas, it's going to take them probably double the effort that it would you to generate someone who they get in rapport with to tell them, yes, I'm interested in selling my home. So our virtual assistants are making about 1,000 dials a day, generating 1 to 2 nurtures per day. And then conversion on those, like once you get the nurture, now you have to follow up with them and provide them value and meet them and sell them. On average, it takes about 12 months for one of those nurtures to turn into an appointment. And my goal with these nurtures is around 10%. I'm happy if around 10% of those leads I generated 12 months ago are converting into a sale, an actual closed sale. So it costs about $80 per seller nurture. That's what I figured out. The real cost challenge, I say, with this methodology is if I'm the one following up on those leads once we get them, I have to factor how much time I invested in that lead over the 12-month span to get in front of them and close that deal. If I'm investing 40 hours or 60 hours and my hourly wage is $800 an hour, you have to add that cost, right? You have to figure out what it costs you to do it. But I would say on average, it takes about 12 months. It's a long game, just like your database.
Wow, so much to unpack there. So first off, what I heard is you're probably spending all in for your callers, what, $2,000 a month, $1,500 a month?
They're $1,500 each. And you
Okay, you
could
have
probably
two?
save a little money there, I'm sure.
Okay, so you're in a couple $1,000. So you got to spend a couple $1,000 hiring callers for a year of cash outlay before you start kind of getting your appointments. 30 grand.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
so let's get
you're going to close deals in that first year. You will. I mean, if you're following up like you should, you're going to close some deals in the first year. You're not going to break even, I don't think. You might if you're in a high price point area like mine. But you should expect to burn that cash for the first 12 months. But by year 2, now you should have, 400, 500 nurturers that say, yes, I'm interested in selling my home in 12 months, 24 months, something like that.
Not very many appointments you're getting off those outbound calls. They're mostly nurtures.
I've never had them set an appointment off the initial call.
Interesting.
I'm sure I could, but if you're outsourcing this to the Philippines, imagine you getting a call from someone in the Philippines. What do? Click, right? So they, it takes them more effort for sure.
But the ROI is there for you.
Yes. What other ways, the way I look at this is, what other ways are you going to get people who say they want to sell? Again, I go back to, I'm competing against the disruptors, right? That's my competition 10 years from today. That's the way I look at it. And so I need to have a huge database, and I'm trying to get people way up the funnel, like before they could ever get in front of, I want to sell my house to Open Door, Zillow, or the next competitor that I have, right? So what's better than calling someone 2 years out from when they're going to sell, and they build this connection to my brand, and I'm their go-to. Oftentimes, I know, they call me when they're ready to sell. Basically, hey, Steve, we're ready to go. You're our guy. Oftentimes, they're not interviewing, right? It's a relationship at that point, because I've been speaking with them for 2 years.
Here's a couple $1,000 a month you're outlaying for hiring people to make phone calls to find people who are just thinking about selling in the future, and just putting a couple people a day into the database and let your database do the work to build a relationship with them before any other competition does.
Exactly. And oftentimes we pull referrals from those leads. Like they're valuable all the way up until when they're ready to sign or close. But there's not very many ways to get people who want to sell their home unless you're spending serious money on direct mail or big call to actions like radio, or like you can go to your database, you can go to outbound marketing, or you can go to pure effort, right? Which is cold call, door knocking, and neighborhood stuff, right? Well, I can't go door knock everyone, right? So it's the fastest way for me to pay someone to get me leads. So I know if I get a lead, I'm going to close it if they want to sell, right? I'm going to at least get the appointment. So that's
Greg,
how I look at it.
What are your thoughts? So Steve, you were on a team, and Steve outsourced much of his outbound cold calling overseas, and he's going just for straight nurtures. You run a very large brokerage where the agents are probably cold calling, and they're calling to work for appointments. I just want to hear your thoughts on cold calling.
So I think both are effective. You can, if you have the money to invest to have other people do it, then I think you can make that investment. And if you don't, you do it yourself, just like anything else. Okay. If you want to build a house, you can build it yourself. You can hire someone to build the house. If you want to, if you can hire somebody to cut your grass, go ahead and hire them. If you can't, then do it yourself. The key is it's got to be done. That's what's important. Now, I also think it's very interesting that he says that you haven't had any direct appointments set. Now, if somebody's going to do it themselves, they should be setting direct appointments.
Yes.
That's an American calling, a highly skilled. Yes.
Yeah. There should be a plethora of business out there. If that's going to be the route you're going. He's choosing to do it a different route, which is equally effective. It's different. Different is not bad. It's not good. Different is just different. So, both of them work. So I think it's highly effective. Of course, there's enhanced ways to call now. Outbound prospecting is shifting, like he said. You don't get as many people on the phone. But go into social media, creating custom audiences in social media, neighborhood after neighborhood, sending information, posting information to get them to opt in to either What's My Home Worth or something like that. You can create a huge list of people by doing that at a very low cost. And then you start calling that list. Now you're shifting from a cold call to a warm call, and your conversion rate is going to be significantly higher by doing that. So those are some of the things that I'd be recommending to people.
And that's what Real Geeks specializes in. So if you guys are looking for a CRM, go check out Real Geeks, because essentially what they'll do is, what Greg's saying is you can make a cold call, but just to shift it just slightly, which is the next pillar for you, Steve, we're going to talk about, is putting up ads on Google, putting up ads on social media, Facebook, that says basically, hey, I mean, the script when you're cold calling is essentially, you know, would you like an offer on your home? I can tell you what your home is worth. Would you be interested in selling? Right? Yeah. You essentially take the same script and put it in a Facebook ad, and you take the same script.
So I'll give you an exact example. Okay, so I have spent $1,298. Let me just confirm that that is correct. On Facebook ads. I have created 294 fully opted in, meaning all data information, 294 seller leads off of a $1,200 spend.
What was the offer in the ad?
It's the What's My Home Worth.
Got it.
But I uploaded individual communities. So then it's not what is my home worth.
What is my pocket, this area home worth?
Yeah, what attention Grand Dunes property owners, another property recently sell that could have impacted the value of properties in the Grand Dunes, find out what your home's worth now, and then the picture is an entrance sign of Grand Dunes. And it's a custom audience of documented Grand Dunes property owners. So now it's like, okay, my lead cost. So my average seller lead cost right now is $2 and I think 20 cents, somewhere in that range. And so I can produce enough of them where instead of just cold calling through white pages or whatever the Mojo list and things like that, you know, that people are doing, I'm going in and focusing on calling these people that have actually opted in on these things. And the conversion ratios through the roof. Then what I do is I'm running that through Real Geeks, by the way. Then everyone that opts in, then I connect them. Now they're going to get a monthly market activity report from Real Geeks. They're going to get a sold report from Real Geeks. So there's two things through automation in Real Geeks that's going to be hitting those people, in addition to all the other touches that I have planned outside of Real Geeks.
Greg, I'm curious, how many niche free value report campaigns are in your Facebook ad account?
700-800.
Seriously?
I never do a blanket. Every one of them.
You broke down your markets to 700 to 800 neighborhoods
in buildings. Yeah.
With specific, with specific messaging for each. Oh
yeah. Well, I mean,
goodness.
Yeah. Well, specific message. It could be the same messaging.
Yeah. Just attention.
You don't have to. It's not new creative. It's just you know, cloning, but changing it a little bit. Yeah.
Are you pulling that data from Cole? Do you know? Is that what they're doing?
I'm using Exact Dial.
Exact Dial. Okay, just drawing the neighborhood. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, no. I'm not. You can draw the neighborhood, but I actually do a CSV export out of the county courthouse record, so I get the actual documented property owners. Yeah. Then I go to Exact Dial, have that data appended. Then we go into custom audience on Facebook. And so then what I can do to what Steve says here is think about how we can niche out now. Okay, because then I can take my favorite communities that have custom audiences and I can do a video on the latest real estate news for the Grand Dunes. Attention, you know, and then I can do a video on a Grand Dunes, a market report, say a market update for the Grand Dunes, do a video, and then I can go back to that same custom audience that's saved there. And now I'm just constantly using that as a way to generate mind share.
Greg, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Steve, is your mind blown?
I mean,
yeah, I mean, we're doing this at a smaller level, but yes, most definitely. I wish I could do more. If I had more people, I would do more of it, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, which leads to the next pillar. So we talked so far about setting up referral sources. And by the way, everyone, I see your questions coming in. We're going to get to all of them here at the very end. So just sit tight and feel free to ask any questions because everyone wants to know specifics. Referral sources from third parties, a very meticulously managed database that's segmented and properly communicated with mailers and events and emails to stay in touch when you're not a pest. Maybe you or agents on your team or hiring overseas to consistently call homeowners through probably some type of compliant dialer, using phone numbers. What you mentioned earlier, Cole Realty Resource, Steve, is where you probably get the phone numbers for making those calls. All right. Which are all, by the way, nurtures in your case, which are going into database, which, by the way, a great CRM is Real Geeks to put all this in. So in segmenting all these, A, B, and C in your database and your sphere and all these nurtures, and many of the drip campaigns are created through that system. So go check it out. You're moving on now to Facebook ads and Google ads, which is one of your next pillars before we get to radio. So we already kind of got Greg's insights on how he sets up his campaigns, which is just mind blowing. 800. Okay, different campaigns in there. What do you do for your Facebook and Google leads? And what are the messages that you put out, Steve? What's your cost per opt-in and what you spend? And tell us how those come into your database.
Yeah, I think that you need to, and Greg, that's crazy. I wish I had more of them, but we are running a very similar strategy. But I think you need to separate two things when you're advertising on social media, specifically Facebook. I think Facebook is definitely crowded now, and there's a lot of agents running the wrong advertising entirely. Like oftentimes I'll see a picture of the agent and it will say, I'm, Joe, real estate agent, call me if you'd like to buy or sell, and it's just a picture of them. And I feel like, gosh, Facebook is just making gobs of money off of these people because that's not what the consumer wants. Remember, Facebook is it's actually interruptive marketing, right? You're going down the Facebook feed and the advertising is interrupting the client. So you need to have a call to action that's relevant to that consumer. So I break it into two sections. One is like lead generation, which are trying to actually get customers' contact info who want to buy or sell. And then the second leg within the social sphere is retargeting. So like our clients that we already have in our database, what are we sending them? What call to actions? What are we wanting to tell them the story, right? So for sellers specific, we break it down to the neighborhood level. And so we have 2 neighborhoods that we're specifically targeting on social media based on price point and zip code. I wish I had 800 because I'd do it at a much higher level. But again, it goes back to being omnipresent. So we're not just doing that on social media. We're calling them, we're doing events, we're mailing to that neighborhood so they really know our brand. But those messages are, whether we have a listing in that neighborhood and it goes live. So we'll do just listed retargeting to those specific custom audiences. And then every stage, once it goes pending, we'll change the message, run a new ad to the same audience. Once it sells, change the message, run a new ad. And now we're targeting with a real call to action, like get the value of your home, or we have buyers, we have buyers for your home now, submit your information if you're considering selling your home. But it's around, for sellers, it's very specific. If you'd like an offer on your home, property values are going up in Sacramento. We have buyers. If you'd like an offer on your home within 24 hours, click now, right? And then we do mess around with home value, but I think the direct offer for, in our market, pretty sophisticated client, Open Door and Zillow are heavily in our, again, it's moved away from the home value to like a cash offer. Get what your home can sell for now with a cash offer. That call to action is most definitely generating far more interest than our home values.
I'm going to share my screen. Let's take a look at one of your ads. This one of your ads, Steve?
Yes.
That works well.
Dang, you went and just called me out, huh?
I got him, dude.
Yes.
That's it.
Absolutely. This home just closed yesterday, actually. So that's a brand new messaging. That same video has been repurposed 2 or 3 different times.
Got it.
Okay.
By the way,
we also hit a direct mail campaign around that same property, and we've probably generated 5 leads off of that campaign. When that home listed, when it went under contract, when it inevitably sold, we're just getting ready to fire off a just sold card. So if I was doing, if I'm a newer agent and I don't have thousands of dollars or staff to pull this off, here's what I would do. I would run, I would not go target sellers just yet. I would go run targeted campaigns for buyers. And keep in mind, just like cold calling, these are not, I'm going to buy a home right now. This is, you have to have some kind of follow-up campaign, no matter, even if you get a referral from your database, oftentimes they're not ready to go for 3 to 6 months. So no matter what, you need to be good at your follow-up. So I would go take a mid-level home in your market, not on the lowest end, not on the highest end, but like kind of like a move-up buyer. And then I would run ads with a move-up level home, that is specific to an area, like a hot area people want to be in. And I would do it to the whole 15-mile radius. And I've had more success targeting sellers that way than I have running specific, like get the value of your home or cash offer. So far, I found.
Steve, I have to pause here. This is incredibly insightful for the audience. Everyone listen. If you want to get seller leads on Facebook, you could run an ad to find out what your home is worth. You could run an ad to maybe get a cash offer on your home, right? You run an ad for maybe attending a seller workshop, right? You may run an ad where we just sold a home for $45,000 over asking price, and I have buyers, and come talk to me. I just showed you here. What Steve's saying here is don't run any of those to start, right, Steve? What
Right.
you're saying is find maybe like an upper middle class home, a trade up home in your market, and run it as a Facebook ad saying, hey, is it time for you to get out of your small house and upgrade to a pool or upgrade to something you really want? Basically, is it time for you to trade in your home and move up? Check out what's for sale in this hot area. That's a pretty desirable home for a lot of people. And just run it 15 miles around the entire city, because you can't really drill it down because of what Facebook calls a special ad category. The leads that come in are buyer leads because they're interested in buying, right, Steve?
Yep.
But since it's a trade up home, they have a home to sell.
Right.
And you got more benefit from that ad than anything else. Am I correct?
I have found, and again, we're not, a heavy majority of our ad spend is not going to Facebook, but after testing this for like 2 years, I would say that the best way to generate the best quality leads is getting a trade up home, one picture and a short call to action. And those buyers tend to be legitimate buyers, like, 2 in 100 are legitimate buyers, but also have to sell a home. Right. And if you're good with your follow-up, you're going to get an opportunity. The cash offer call to action is a newer option on Facebook that we've been working. And I still think there's value there, but I think if you're a newer agent and you don't have the capability to buy that home, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And honestly, it's going to be much harder to convert if you're not able to buy that home or make them an offer or like a subject matter expert yet on that component.
So let's move on. There's one last pillar we'll touch on very briefly just for a few minutes, Steve. And then let's answer some questions, Greg, and have some overtime with us. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So the interview today was 4 or 5 ways, but it's really 5 kind of ways to get listings. We've talked so far about third-party referrals, and Greg gave us a whole bunch of options. Your existing past client and Sphere database that's meticulously organized and communicated with, ideally around maybe 4 events a year, which is a good excuse to communicate. All right. Then we talked about cold calling, whether it's Americans doing it, agents on your team going for the appointment, or hiring overseas to generate nurtures that go into your database. And then we touched on a little bit of Facebook, just some of the messages that go out there. And by the way, one of the things I showed everyone is if you go to the Facebook ad library and you type in any page, you can see everyone's ads.
This is a great nugget, by the way.
So I went to the Wall Street Journal top 100 teams and I took all their ads. So I had a VA go through and find the Facebook pages of the top 100 teams in the United States and take a look at all the ads to find similarities in the messaging. So you kind of know what's working for response. So Facebook ad library, you can check that out. Facebook made that information public due to privacy concerns.
Same with Zillow, Open Door, and all those big competitors.
Yeah,
as well.
You can go to Zillow, see all their Facebook ads, Realtor. I mean, anyone running a Facebook page, you can see all the ads. So when someone says they're running Facebook ads, I'm like, oh, interesting. Let's take a look at them. So with that, the last one is I'll talk about radio. So obviously radio is expensive. We don't have a lot of time to talk about radio, and that's not going to appeal to a lot of people here. The question I want to ask you about radio is the messaging.
Yeah.
When you're writing that, when you're spending those kind of checks, by the way, what are you spending on radio right now, Steve?
Just shy of 10,000 a month.
Okay. So we won't have to go down to ROI on that. And leads are very good when they come in from radio. When you're writing that kind of check and you have to write the spot, like what they're going to say, you obsess over the messaging. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
What's the message?
It's the message of our whole company. And like when I had to found our team, it's only 2.5 years old now, right? I obsessed over what is the mission? What is the problem we're trying to solve as a real estate agent, right? Because let's face it, there's other options now, and those options are getting cheaper by the day, So I have our unique value proposition of our team. If I could break it into one word, it's having options. So we rotate messaging based on, Elevate Realty Group can provide you options unlike any other agent in our market. We can provide you an instant offer. We'll buy the house, let you move out when you want. You pick your close date. You can stay for up to 30 days at no cost. We have a renovation loan. We call it concierge, where we'll loan up to $20,000 for repair. And the seller can pay us back at closing. It's more of a partnership on a flip, renovate now, pay later. And then, our full package listing package where we'll pay for inspections up front, pay for a deep clean up front, pay for staging up front. Like if we're getting a full fee, and then more of a menu-based approach from there. If we have a price-conscious seller and we're competing on it and I want that listing, I'll start giving them a menu of options they can choose to select and deselect. But really, it's 3 key core options. And the reason I did that is because I don't want to get what I believe will wind up happening. And guys, you got to remember, I've gone on like close to 15,000 listing appointments over 7 years, right? Like literally thousands and thousands of meetings. And the consumer over the last 2 or 3 years, consistently, commission objections, going to things like Home Light first because they're spending so much money on pay-per-click, they get to the consumer first, right? And now with Open Door and Zillow, almost every appointment. Whoa. Am I
almost there, Steve? Yeah,
am I muted?
You're still there.
Okay.
You're good.
My mic almost fell. Almost every appointment I've gone on in the last 6 months had an offer from Open Door Zillow first. I want that to sink in. Like it is becoming commonplace for the consumer to go to there first. So I want to be able to provide that option and not get the call. It's not that I'm going to go buy those homes. It's that I want to have it too, or at least tell the consumer about it so that I'm the one that's there between the investor and the consumer to be part of that transaction. So that's the key, is coming up with, you have to be unique when it comes to, what service you're providing. If our only uniqueness is that we provide great customer service, well, I don't think there's really anything unique about that. I think that's expected when you're getting a 5 or 6% commission at this point in time.
So the messaging you're putting out to the marketplace is I help you understand all of your options, and there's many ways to sell a home, and I'll personalize the plan that's best for you. Not even understand them.
We provide you options unlike anyone else, right? We're very point blank. Like I can give you something that no one else in our market can.
Cool. Let's move on just because we're over a little bit of time. Steve, lots of information. Thank you. This is something someone can take to think about how do you go about getting listings. I think the big takeaway here is we start off is with databases where most people should start before they go and spend more of the more expensive options, and maybe even some Facebook ads. So a couple questions. Let's see here. The mailers. Do you have an example or an idea of what you send out every month? To your database?
Can I share my screen?
Sure. Just don't share the whole screen. It's really small to see on YouTube.
Oh,
When you click screen share on Zoom, just share the window and make that window look like a rectangle. And
okay.
it will be easy for the audience to see that way on the screen share.
All right. Well, let me pull something up real quick. I'll just show you.
For drip campaigns, Real Geeks, you can load all of the drip campaigns, all the contacts that come in from your radio in this case, all the nurtures that come in from the calling team, all the leads that come in from Facebook. That's what you use, Greg. Real Geeks follows up with those. Your entire database of past clients and spheres segmented by A, Bs, and Cs. Put it inside Real Geeks. All the drip campaigns can be automated directly through that.
And I will say, I want to add to that, like, no matter what kind of lead generation you're doing, the fortune is in the follow-up. If you're chasing now business only, you're going to get tapped out, or you're going to spend a lot of money to get there, right? So 80% of your business and closings will come from your follow-up. So if you haven't set automation up or drip campaigns, I wouldn't do anything until you have that set up, honestly, with really clear messaging and value to the consumer. Don't have just canned emails. You have to have it custom tailored to their specific situation. I'm clicking screen share and it says host disabled participant.
Problem solved. Hang on. Done.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Hold on.
Yay.
Does that work?
Perfect.
Okay. Here's one. I mean, this is going to the printer as we speak, right? Sample front, record-breaking sale, 700,000. Text code. We use text codes where it drops a link if they text, and then we get their phone number in our database. And then we also have a home valuation website as well.
Great.
Right. This is also like a farm to us. So we are omnipresent there with listings and mailers and social media marketing, whatnot.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing.
We're using Canva to do that, by the way.
Cool.
Okay.
Really nice. Let's see here. Who can run your PPC for you? Real Geeks.
Yep.
They can do a great job of that. They'll run the pay-per-click campaigns. You want someone very knowledgeable doing that. Pay-per-click requires a lot of management with regard to negative keyword management, of which when people type in certain phrases, you don't want it to show up. So someone has to go in there and take a look at the phrases and run the negative campaigns all the time. It's probably one of the biggest things with pay-per-click. Let's see what else. I lost my spot. When your VAs are making their outbound phone calls, just how do they open the phone? Like, give me the script that someone uses just to open the phone conversation.
Yeah, these are pure circle prospecting, and we've to improve the results, we've been calling around listings that we've either listed or sold. So the script is, good morning, Mr. Brown. This is Steve with Keller Williams. We're calling to notify you that we recently sold a home in your neighborhood. We had several offers on that home. Do you happen to know of anyone that's considering making a move in the next 12 to 24 months? And let them respond, right? If they say, oh no, I don't know anyone. Well, have you yourself considered leaving the neighborhood, or do you just love it so much you're going to die in the home, right? So you're really digging on, first you make it about the neighbor, then you make it about that specific owner.
So you're going a little more indirect than straight up. Do you want to sell your house?
Oh yeah, if you go straight to you want to sell your house, you're never going to get any nurtures, honestly. It's going to be really tough.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, that's all I got, man. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for giving so much great information. If anyone has any referrals for Steve up in Sacramento, I'm sure he'll close them and do a good job.
We will take those. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve wasn't paid. Yeah, he wasn't paid. He came on here totally free to just share his knowledge with all of us to learn. So, Steve, I really thank you for being here, my friend. And Greg and I are just going to have a 20-minute conversation without you being here, just kind of as a little recap for everyone after the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, Greg, I followed you from afar and very insightful. I would love to connect on that 800 neighborhood
800 Facebook campaign. Yeah,
that's crazy. All right,
listen,
guys.
If you want to private message me on Facebook, we can set up a call and I can explain to you what I'm doing and kind of how I did it at scale in order to keep costs down. So
yeah, I would love that. Cool.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks,
Steve. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Craig, what'd you learn?
You know, what I'm present to is there's so many ways to build a business. And as long as you choose a lane, you choose a path, and you go deep on that path. He's doing a lot of work on his database, right? And because past customers and circle centers of influence or sphere, 50% of his business, right? You're not going to get that much business from your centers of influence and sphere if you just use the standard, well, I'm going to mail them once a month, or I'm going to mail them every other month, and then I'll call them once a quarter. It takes more than that. 10 years ago, you could get away with calling them once a quarter. And then, or maybe 15 years ago. And then 10 years, it was call them once a quarter, email them twice a month. And now it's like call them once a quarter, email them twice a month. Then you do this on social media. Then you do this on direct mail. And that's what I see that he's done. He's gone deeper and deeper than his competition, most likely, deeper than his competition in that pillar. And that's where success comes from. We need to decrease the amount of things that we do and increase the depth of the doing on the things that we're going to do.
I like the his database, going through 1,000 past clients, because Steve's backstory, by the way, he's with a big team that moved.
Yeah.
So he went through and probably called his broker, because he was probably on like a high internet lead cold calling transaction treadmill, and decided, all right, I've been doing this for a while. Give me the names and phone numbers and addresses of all my past clients. Let me put them into a CRM, figure out which ones moved here and which ones moved out of state. Super painful and time consuming, right? Then from there, let me go through my Facebook, let me go through my cell phone. And I believe if the numbers were correct, I think he has 900 sphere. So people that he just knows that maybe he hasn't a transaction with, and enter all of those people, and let alone finding their contact information. This took him 6 months.
Yeah. And some of those people that he calls his sphere might not have been his sphere in the beginning. He's creating sphere.
Yeah, constantly.
Because he's doing such a good job.
Yeah.
He's learning how to take a stranger, turn them into an advocate, into an acquaintance, and then take an acquaintance and turn them into an advocate or a sphere.
Yeah.
So he's manufacturing sphere, which is fantastic.
Yep, puts them all in there, segments them down by A, B, and C, and puts very specific action plans or type of follow-up plans for each of those segments. Really centered around the 4 events a year, I think, is really probably where it sounds like he gets his most bang for a buck. And what he said in there was not the event. He doesn't really care about the pies, let alone if anyone comes and gets them. It's the excuse to call, where it's not just want to buy or sell. You're inviting them to something. Yeah. And also, as he builds his team, will make it easier for him to hire agents who don't want to do the cold calls, but they can call the database and invite to events and start getting conversations started.
Yeah. His events brings everyone's guard down.
Yeah.
It brings everyone's guard down. It doesn't feel like it's a sell. He's not just communicating to sell them something. He's communicating to give them something. It brings the guard down. It really softens up the, the conversation, and people are going to reciprocate by talking to him because he's coming with a give, not an ask.
The second thing that stood out to me, which I think is, so obviously database is kind of this big thing to go do right now. Yeah. I think anyone could leave this right now by changing up one of their Facebook campaigns, especially for Roby's customers.
Yeah.
Is what's the message you put out to the market? And I love putting a little more expensive home, not a luxury home, maybe like a trade up home, whatever your market is, with some type of ad copy that I'm sure is available. You can find online of, it's time to sell the one you've been in and get something nicer for yourself now that you're stuck at home with COVID and you learned the value of the house, right? And with that opt-in, the opt-ins, the registrations on your home search site that come in from that specific ad, those leads need to be treated better because they probably have a home to sell, and you have to slow down that lead follow, but not just assume this one to buy. I thought that was pretty insightful.
Yeah, I think it's
cool. Well, let's take a look here. So let's see, do we have any other questions at all?
I can tell you one thing, Frank. I've got 1% on my battery. I just looked at it.
Oh.
Okay. So if I happen to disappear, everybody, you understand what's happening. But, again, I can appreciate the depth that everything he did, he seemed to go deeper in. And he's going to just continue to grow his business well beyond where he is right now if he continues that methodology. There's no question. His trajectory. Oh, good. Hey, can you just plug that in real quick? I just got somebody. So
that's happened to me in the middle of the meeting.
My good friend Abe Safa, who I do so much business with, just take the black plug out. I just text him. He lives next door, and I said, "Do you have a charger?" And then all of a sudden, my son just comes in with his charger.
And Greg, man, dude, you just continue to impress me.
What's that?
The fact that you went through, I don't know, Myrtle Beach, where basically your main office is, and you basically had to go in, I'm assuming, and like drawing little areas of little pockets of neighborhoods, all the way even down to like the building. 800 times. 800 little niches of neighborhoods for the most part. Mm-hmm. Then you would go to county records or like something like Cole Realty and get the first name, last name, property address, mailing address that you could probably get for like a penny a record, depending upon where you get that data from. And then you went to a third party source and you appended all the phone numbers that probably come back to that address, which generally, if you're going to do that, append a mailing address, not property address. That's a tip, by the way. And email addresses. So you had like, I don't know, over time, 800 spreadsheets. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look, Frank, I was just getting on the computer right now to see if there's any way I could find this old video. And you and I did a video when you first started your business.
Yeah.
And you were the hustler, right? You were going around,
flying around, meeting everyone,
every convention. You and you caught me somewhere. You and I did a video. I don't know how many years ago that was. It was years and years ago. And I started doing this back then. Now, what I did is it didn't have anything to do with Facebook back then. So, but I remember that. I was building
segmenting your databases.
I was segmenting my databases, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago by neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that now. And because I did that, then as the technology advances and new opportunities show up and there's new ways of doing something, because I had my databases segmented the right way years and years ago, it was easy for me to just be, Facebook custom audiences already got the databases, already had them. Yep. Now I update them every 2 years. I update them. But I had in Infusionsoft years ago, I think I had 700 condo buildings segmented in my email database in Infusionsoft, and another 800 residential communities. I think Infusionsoft themselves, I think I had the most tags in my database of anybody in Infusionsoft at that time.
Yeah. I remember back in that conversation, at the time, I believe you had about 30 agents, and they would all make about 30, they would speak to 30 people a day. That was kind of the goal, I think.
Yeah. So many years ago. Yeah.
And I would say, Greg, your office speaks to 900 people a day. Like, sure. Like, oh my God, I mean, it blows my mind, right? At that time, because I never saw that. It was so new to me. Mm-hmm. And being the marketing guy, I'm like, my goodness, are they asking for email addresses and information to stay in touch? Mm-hmm. And I think it wasn't so much. It was like, not so much. I'm like, man, you really need to like get these guys to slow down and ask for like their best contact information to stay in touch. And then when you put it in the database, tag the neighborhood they live in, or tag the area they're interested in buying in. And you started that like 7 or 8 years ago.
I probably started that 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah. So I started building databases. So I was lucky. I attended the first business mastery course that Tony Robbins ever did. I was actually in the first room, and there was only like 150 people in that room. And that was when a guy named Chet Holmes was still alive, and he was Tony Robbins' partner.
He wrote the Ultimate Sales Machine book.
The Ultimate Sales Machine. And there was a segment on there that he taught at the business mastery course on monetizing the database. And basically it was really how to deliver value. And then what was interesting is that he came from a publishing company, and he was selling products. So it was how to deliver value. And he was speaking on like, how can you deliver value if you're trying to sell a product to an audience? And I was struggling for a little while because I'm like, well, what is our product? We're a service-based industry. We're not a product-based industry. And so I really like thought about it, and I said, well, our product is information. And so our freemium has to be information.
Which has to be very niche and relevant.
It has to be niche and relevant. And then to take it a little bit deeper, we have to compete against Google, because Google is actually, their value is information. So then when I realized that, okay, I thought my value was information, well, Google's going to beat me, because people are going to go to Google before they come to Greg Harrelson. If it's just like, you know, what's the importance of a home inspection, they're going to actually go to Google and Google that stuff, right? So then what I realize is that the real value that we can deliver to our database is the interpretation of information, because and that's the future right now. Is we're not, as agents, our value is not delivering information to the database, because too many people are doing that. What our value is now is the interpretation of information that people already have. When the consumer goes to Google and says, what's my home worth? They get a Zestimate, then they get something from Trulia and Redfin and Movado and you name it. They get 10 different Zestimate or estimates of their home, and not one of them are the same. And they're going to range from anywhere from let's just say a $200,000 property. It could range from $200,000 to $275,000 to $300,000. So if somebody's property, they go and look at all the estimates, they're going to have about a $50,000 to $100,000 range. So when it was only the Zestimate given a valuation, then it was right or wrong, because everyone's going to sit here and say, well, it's the worst valuation ever. I'm not trying to argue that. I'm saying that when there was only one, then the consumer actually thought they knew what the value of their property is. Now that there's 15, now the consumer's more confused. And so information is not the value, it's the interpretation. So a video on confused at what, confused on what your property's worth, tired of inconsistent valuations on the internet, here's how you determine the real value of your property. Like, that would be a great video. Well, I'm saying that because I made it up. I'm a little biased there, but that would be a great example of an interpretation versus just giving information. Here's what your property's worth. Yeah. Interpretation is very desired right now. So anybody that's working,
bring me on FaceTime, like and the answer to that, by the way, is like, you got to see the house. Someone needs to go inside and see the unique features. So you probably don't want a stranger going through your home, but just FaceTime me in and walk me through. Yeah. And I can give you a more accurate estimate of what it's worth.
Fantastic way to do it. A great way to capture it.
So think about
that.
So
it's really evolving. This whole thing, it's like things don't die, things evolve. When I were talking about cold calling, it's like, man, cold calling is kind of like, it is kind of an old thing, right? That's, old stuff. But calling is not necessarily old, but how we're generating the list may be totally different. Generating a lot of lists based on opt-ins, so then it becomes a warm call is a much more, it's a more efficient way of doing it these days.
Great stuff today. A couple other questions I want to answer. Kim asks, where do you find email addresses? Kim, that's called a skip trace. So just Google skip trace. And you just want to use a compliant database. That way you put the name of the owner in there. You put the mailing address and the property address that you get from property records. Many companies will send you the detailed neighborhood data from property records. Coal Information or Coal Resource Realty is a good place to start. PropStream is another one. There's
we're using Exact Dial.
Exact Dial. Yep, Exact Dial. You can also check out Remine. Remine might be something inside your MLS that you can use to get it. It's pretty cheap. Where the money comes, which is usually anywhere between 3 cents to 20 cents. 25 cents is finding the phone numbers and email addresses for that homeowner. And that's generally what it's called an append or a skip trace. And you can go check out any sources to add that to the spreadsheet. Just basically adds an email column and phone number column, but maybe up to like 7 even phone numbers, right? But what's associated with the address and name. And there you go. And what Greg did is he uploaded all those to Facebook to create a audience to market just to those people on that list, which is super niche. Pretty cool. All right. Yeah, I'm happy with everything else. Good stuff. Greg, good show today.
Yeah, man. I look forward to the next one.
Want to know 4 ways to get more listings. You got 4 ways. I think the 2 takeaways, 2 of those require some money. The 2 takeaways is a trade up Facebook ad and get very serious about the nurture program that you have with your existing list. All right, the existing database. And the replay for this show is right here on YouTube. So when we leave the show, it'll be right here for the replay. So you guys are all set. So I'll see you next time.